2000 and the year 2019. We shall equally be telling you that in Sudan, a mandate of the country's unity government has been extended by 24 months. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening once more. You're welcome to this 6 p.m. primetime newscast over 4U television. To unfold these newscasts, we shall begin with South Sudan, where the mandate of the unity government has been extended by 24 months. The decision was put forth by the country's Minister of Government Affairs, Martin Eluelu after an indoors meeting. The details are with you, Moni Manu.
The mandate of South Sudan's unity government has been extended to 24 months. This decision was put forth by South Sudan's Minister of Government Affairs, Martin Eluelu. South Sudan's government announced that this 2-year extension of the post-Civil War transitional period will end in 2023 with a new roadmap to the peace deal. One of the reasons given by the officials over the extension of the present government's mandate is to address the challenges that are hampering the implementation of the peace agreement. The present government's mandate was scheduled to end this 2022, but was pushed back to February 2023 due to the lack of progress on many provisions of the peace agreement that ended a bloody 5-year civil war between sworn enemies Riek Machar and Salva Kiir in 2018. The conflict had left nearly 400,000 people dead and millions displaced. The agreement of power sharing came into effect in February 2020 with Mr. Salva as president and Mr. Machar as vice president. Countries which sponsored the country's independence in 2011, such as the US, the UK and Norway, all boycotted the closed-door meeting. Many provisions of the 2018 agreement remain unimplemented, partly due to ongoing disputes between the two rivals. The world's youngest country
Thank you, Mwanze Joyogo, for that report. We now take you to Senegal, where Senegalese presidential camps have lost the absolute majority in the National Assembly but stays in the lead with a very narrow lead after the proclamations of the legislative results of elections on Thursday, August 4th. The details are with you, Futso.
First time in this West African stability, the party in power loses an absolute majority and will have to rely on other forces in parliament to pass its laws. President Macky Sall's coalition left from 125 deputies in 2017 to 82 out of the 165 in the assembly, according to the provisional official results of the National Commission of Census of the votes published Thursday, August 1st. The opposition confirms its dynamic already initiated during the local elections of January, in particular in certain big cities, and gains 86 of deputies in total, 56 for the coalition Yewi Askanwi and 24 for that of Wallu Senegal, which formed an alliance for the legislative. 3 other deputies are from the ranks of 3 other small coalitions of parties. The final figures must be published for the Constitutional Council within 5 days if there is no appeal. These results could convince the President of the Republic, disavowed by the ballot box, to give up the project which is lent to him to represent himself in the presidential election of 2024, says experts and observers. President Macky Sall, elected and re-elected in 2019 for 5 years, remain unclear about his intentions for the 2024 presidential election. He also promised that he will appoint a prime minister from the party that won the elections. After the votes, the figures coming from the Departmental Vote Census Commissions showed a very tight ballot, and both sides claim victory.
Away from elections onto the climate change in the Gambia has recorded its heaviest rainfall in 3 decades, causing widespread flooding and at least 2 deaths, the government officials said on Wednesday, August 4th. The country has blamed climate change for the extreme weather, as the details are in the following report. After African heads of state held talks on climate change, the Gambia has recorded its heaviest rainfall in more than 30 years, causing widespread flooding and at least 2 deaths, the government officials said on Wednesday, August 3rd. Torrential rain started on Saturday morning and continued for more than 20 hours in parts of the West African country, stated the Department of Water Resources. The department further added that the highest rainfall measured over the period was 276 millimeters at Banjul International Airport, compared to a previous record of 175.7 millimeters in July 1998. 2 children died and an estimated 13,000 households were affected by the floods, a top official said, as heavy rain continued on and off throughout the country. Over the years, the Gambia has been heavily vulnerable to the effects of climate change, including floods, droughts, sea level rise and heat waves, according to the World Bank. Possible causes are that of the nation's capital, Banjul, is situated on a peninsula where the Gambia River flows into the Atlantic Ocean. Back to elections, but this time around we're taking you to West Africa in Kenya, where few days are left for the West African nation of over 22 million registered voters to elect hundreds of representatives of their new government, including a new president. The details are in this report with you, Mwanzi Joyogo.
On August 9, over 22 million Kenyans will elect hundreds of representatives of their new government, including senators, governors, members of parliament, and the nation's next president. Regarding who will lead Kenya for the next 5 years, 4 men have presented themselves to succeed President Uhuru Kenyatta. The candidates include Raila Odinga, William Ruto, David Wahiga, and George Wajakoya.
Each of the frontrunners have an ideology or an idea of something new or something that they want to change about the Kenyan economy or about the Kenyan politics or just about the Kenyan governance. William Ruto's sides are big on economic transformation, and as you know, there's a generally high cost of living basically everywhere around. And for Raila Odinga, he's capitalizing on the need to end corruption. As you know, corruption is one of the biggest challenges in the country, and a lot of money, a lot of government funds meant for development have been embezzled in the past. So Raila Odinga and his running mate Martha Karua are known to be very apt fighters of corruption. And if they win, then we will see definitely a very, very strong fight on corruption. Of course, the other candidates, Wajakoya, wants to introduce to legalize the use and the growing of marijuana, and if he wins, probably that will happen, especially medicinal marijuana. And we also have another one, but although they are not among the front runners. So to be precise, definitely whichever candidate wins, there will be some sort of a change.
The Kenyan economy is at the center stage of the August 9 election, since the high cost of living in the country highlights income inequalities and low standards of living. Kenyans are to be registered using biometric equipment, identification at the polling station, and the transmission of results will also be electric. The votes themselves will still be cast using traditional ballots. Voting and electronic ballot counting is a very sensitive issue in Kenya. The country has experienced several election periods marked by deadly violence. Accusations of hacking sparked riots and looting in 2017, and the Supreme Court ordered a rerun after irregularities in the transmission of results. Eyes are turned towards the August 9th elections, as many hope the soon-to-be-elected government officials will bring about a positive change in the East African nation.
From one region to the next, we now take you to the Horn of Africa, where the United States have urged the Ethiopian government to give unrestricted access to fuel in the Tigray region in a bid to overcome the area's inability to access food aid. Take a listen to this report.
The United States has urged Ethiopia to allow unrestricted access to fuel in the conflict-hit Tigray region in order for emergency aid to be distributed to areas low on food. According to the superpower, there should be unfettered aid deliveries to Tigray and the neighboring conflict-hit regions of Afar and Amhara, urging the government to leave restrictions on cash and fuel. Ethiopia has previously termed claims of fuel shortage in Tigray a myth, as it says warehouses are full of bags of grain that cannot be distributed because of the fuel shortage. In recent weeks, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's government and the Tigray People's Liberation Front have both raised the prospect of negotiations to end the brutal conflict after several attempts of a possible ceasefire. Amid the food crisis, the U.S. and the European Union envoys for the Horn of Africa on Tuesday, August 2nd, have urged the Ethiopian government to resume essential services in Tigray after a rare visit of the Secretary of State Antony Blinken to the Wharton region facing dire conditions. The northern region had been struggling to cope with food shortages and no access to basic utilities since June 2021, when Tigrayan rebels recaptured it from federal forces after war erupted around 21 months ago. More than 13 million people need food assistance across the northern Ethiopia, according to the United Nations. The conflict has driven hundreds of thousands of people to the brink of famine and displaced more than 2 million, while both sides have been accused of committing serious human rights violations. Fighting has ceased since a humanitarian truce was declared at the end of March.
Onto health on the African continent. According to a report released by the World Health Organization's State of Health in Africa, it says that life expectancy on the African continent has risen by nearly 10 years between the year 2000 and the year 2019, from 46 years to 56 years of age. Could these gains be lost? Find out in this report with you, Moni Manu.
Officials of the World Health Organization still note that this is well below the global average of 64 years. World Health Organization Assistant Regional Director for Africa, Lindsay Makubalo, warned the life expectancy gains could easily be lost unless countries strengthen and make greater investments in the development of healthcare systems. Speaking from the Republic of Congo's capital, Brazzaville, she said Africa has made a good start in the direction over the past 2 decades. On average, she noted access to essential infection diseases could jeopardize health gains if those conditions continue to be neglected. The report also says that COVID-19 pandemic has unleashed greater disruptions to essential health services in the African continent compared to other regions of the world, and those disruptions might affect healthy life expectancy estimates. It also notes some progress have been made in achieving universal health coverage, but it is far from enough. Health officials say one of the key measures to improve access to health services is for governments to increase their public health budgets.
We now leave health to talk Africa-U.S. relations, where top U.S. diplomat Linda Thomas-Greenfield is on a working visit to the African continent. Her trip was announced just a few days after Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov completed his tour in 4 African countries. The details are with you, Mwanzi Joyogo.
U.S. envoy to the United Nations, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, is on a working visit in the African continent. The ambassador made known that a point of focus during her trip in the African continent will be on how the United States can help Uganda, Ghana, and Cape Verde deal with the food crisis which the continent is facing, and not to compete with China and Russia. According to Greenfield, the long-planned trip is not part of global competition with either of America's competitors, but rather a series of high-level U.S. engagements that aim to affirm and strengthen partnerships and relationships with African leaders and people. Her trip from August 4th to 7th will be followed immediately by U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken's visit to South Africa, Congo and Rwanda from August 7th to 11th. This visit comes barely days after Russia's foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, ended his trip to the African continent. During his trip, Lavrov rejected accusations that Russia is to blame for the high and fluctuating prices of commodities in the world, but instead blamed the West for monopolizing commodity and supply flows during the pandemic, saying it worsened the situation for food imports. The Russian foreign minister also added that the sanctions imposed to his country is not a solution to the present crisis the globe faces. President Biden's ambassador to the UN says the three countries she will be visiting all face food security situations due to the noticeable increase in the cost of food and energy. While in Ghana, she will visit the market, hold talks with farmers, and see how their production can be improved.
The White House has announced that a series of steps aimed to defend a free and open Indo-Pacific following Chinese firing of at least 11 ballistic missiles into waters encircling Taiwan, a day after U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi wrapped up a visit to the island. Moni Manu has the rest of that story.
John Kirby, coordinator for strategic communications at the National Security Council, said Thursday that China has chosen to overreact and use the speaker's visit as a pretext to increase provocative military activity in and around Taiwan Strait. He said U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has directed the aircraft carrier USS Ronald Reagan and the ships in her strike group to remain in the vicinity to monitor the situation, and that Washington will also conduct standard air and maritime transits through the Taiwan Strait in the next few weeks. He promised further steps to demonstrate commitment to U.S. allies, including Japan, which announced that 5 of the Chinese missiles landed within their exclusive economic zone. According to him, China is pushing to change the status quo in Taiwan. They are boiling the frog, he said. They are taking the temperature up to a higher level with perhaps the intention of maintaining that sort of intensity, or at least being able to conduct those kinds of operations on a more frequent, regular basis going forward. To reduce tensions, Kirby said that Washington is postponing a long-planned test of Air Force Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missile.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this 6 p.m. primetime newscast over 4U television. I have been Jigs Nabuse at the anchor. Of course, as you follow our programs, God bless Africa.